we are good to go.
Yes. All right. So let me just put on full screen there. That's good. Yeah, it's good to go. So I also want to share a couple clinical insights in just a moment here as well.
Gorgeous. Well, I know that we had a big day today. Bunch of people rolling in through our studio. A lot of wonderful, grateful faces. Have you had any sweet gratitude moments this week?
I really did. So interesting you asked that question. I did not today in clinic yet. Excuse me. Over the weekend, I had a really just kind of a fun moment. And I'll share with you. It's one of those just like so there's two things that I think I know for certain over all these years, that courage and kindness are contagious. And when I say that, it almost excites me just to say that. So courage and kindness I think they're really, really contagious. So anytime anyone has the opportunity to express either one of them, it's a ripple effect. And I say that especially in a time when it'd be easy right now, and maybe we're all a little guilty of it, saying, man, the world's a tough place, or it's an odd place right now. But what holds true always is that people are kind, and there's a lot of courageous people out there. And when we get to witness those behaviors, I think it sparks something in all of us. I don't care who you are, what mood you're in, but when you see courage and when you see kindness, it's hard not to then just to participate in that. So that happened to me this weekend. So I was up at the farm, and I always find an excuse to leave for a moment and go to the local coffee shop. And when I was there, and there's just the nicest people there, and this is a little country bumpkin town. And so I always go in there and usually have a dog with me, and they love the dog, of course, whichever one I bring. And so I go up and I get my coffee. There might have been something else, who knows. Anyways, I get my coffee, and the girl behind the counter says, no charge today. Someone filled up a gift card and everything's free until it runs out.
Art, that's so cool. You mean your treat was free?
Yes, my treat was for free. My coffee was for free. And it was just one of those unexpected, kind acts, right? So that's the kindness that I think is contagious. And there was no one there to receive a thank you or appreciate you or anything like that. It was just, oh, I just have to receive in this moment. And it was, so it was just fantastic. So inevitably, and I'm not sharing this for this reason, but inevitably I'm like, I'm paying it forward. And so same thing. And so I contributed to fill up that gift card more and just pay it forward. And it makes, so I'll tell you, it was nice to receive the kindness, and it was equally nice to give it. And I think
I think it can really like shift the tone of the day, right? When you are kind of confronted with radical kindness.
Yeah, especially the one that it has no expectation of a pat on the back. And it's perfectly okay. Like it's okay to just let it, like you do something nice, they say thank you, pat you on the back, and you then say thank you and do something nice again. That exchange is perfectly fine. Yet to see it just completely, in just a nice, wonderful way, and I'm going to encourage everyone, just be kind. Like I know it's Thanksgiving, and this to me, what this holiday is all about is just that gratitude and that kindness that we get to pay forward to each other. Make sure that when you're with family that you are courageous, literally, and remind everyone of the kindness that we're trying to share in this time of year. And then, I think in between the holiday moments, be courageous enough to be kind the entire time, even when someone pulls in front of you at the gas station, or things aren't going your way online or something, right? A restaurant runs out of your favorite dish, or just whatever. Continue to be kind and see how far you can pay it forward. I promise you, it is contagious when you do it.
Yeah, I think courage is such a beautiful word to use with it, because I think when you're in moments where like something is uncomfortable, to choose kindness, it just changes it for everybody involved. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I would agree. I think those moments often take courage. Right?
Absolutely.
But I think we could take that even on a deeper level or a more personal level, and just say, think of our personal households when we have conflict, right? When we have disagreements with the people that we love or we care for, who's going to step up with the courage to just be kind. And if that, if nothing else, and just saying that right now, I'm thinking, I should do that more often because it works. Because the moment, here's the funny thing. Let's just say, you're having an argument with your spouse, your friend, your family member, kid, whatever, and you're holding a line to fight. Nobody wins. The moment someone chooses kindness, everybody gets kind, just like that. It's so interesting.
It is some magic stuff. It makes me think of there was a teacher in middle school that anytime there was like a fight going on, everyone's saying like, he started it, she started it, and she would always say, who ended it?
Oh, yeah. Right on.
Twist.
Yeah, so that was a nice little moment of kindness and being able to pay it forward. And I was telling my wife afterwards, I was like, I'm going to do that every time I go out now. Like,
Yeah, you caught the bug, right? You're now
yeah, just
infected
because
with the kindness.
it felt so good to be able to receive that way, that someone just did something. They don't even know me, but they did something really kind for me. And how easy it was for me to pay that forward, how easy it was for that individual to do that. And there's, that's just, and I thought, wow, what a great thing. What if every place I went, just got a little gift card and put it back there and said, this for the next people. And just, I wonder what kind of ripple effect that would have. I think it would be a neat experiment.
Yeah, a good one for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let me dive into a couple of these clinical insights.
Let's do it.
And again, for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. Love having you. And everyone who's showing up every week and passing things on, keep doing the thing, keep sharing out, keep spreading. I appreciate all the feedback that we get. We love hearing it. We love the questions you send in. We will continue to do our best to get to all of them. The clinical insights, which I usually start with each week, are some of the insights that I have while I'm in clinic that I think would be valuable for everyone to hear. It could be a good story, it could be a challenging story, or just something that we all can learn from. And so much of what I see in clinic is relevant to the masses, more so than just the individual. So that's why I love sharing these little bits here. So, all right, first one is a patient of mine that came in. Her mother has cancer and she is not doing anything to help herself. So this isn't probably an awesome story, but nonetheless, this is real. She has a lot of health practices. She does her cleanse every year. She takes her supplements. She exercises. She goes to sound baths that we have at the studio. She's all in and just experimenting nonstop with leveling herself up. And her mom's kind of in the opposite category. She's in the middle of chemo and radiation, feels miserable every day, and literally doing nothing. So my conversation with the young girl was this: one, continue to lead by example. So there's two parts that anyone that's in this scenario, and there's a lot of people right now, most of us have a similar situation. For the most part, if you're probably listening to this podcast, you have some level of a health practice. And part of doing that, you often want to share your practice with other people. Hey, this might help you. This could work better. And sometimes it falls upon deaf ears. So with that, I would say a couple things. One, lead the best that you can by your own personal actions. And the other is learn. And this is a big one we forget at times, because I think that will often lead to driving more healthy actions for ourselves. So I asked the young girl today, I said, well, what are you learning right now that your mom is going through cancer and not doing anything about it? And her quick answer was, I'm going to do more than I ever have. And that was beautiful. And so it wasn't that she was going to try to change her mom. I think she knows she can't. And as much as we'd all love to, especially with our family members, especially someone that you truly love and you're just trying to help, we can't change them. But leading by example is huge. It's probably the single best. That's the courage to be able to just continue to lead. And then the other part is learn. Always allow yourself to learn if someone else is going through something that's painful to you and to them. What are you learning? Like what can you take away to hopefully, maybe you learn something that you don't repeat, or you learn something that you did like to see. So, and there's so many levels to that. So that was insight number one, that, sometimes the best we can do is lead and learn simultaneously. We're not going to convince everyone to do things our way.
Absolutely.
Second. Yeah. So second one, similar, but different, meaning similar. It was another cancer case. 72-year-old female. She had bladder cancer, not in radiation or chemotherapy, but doing some pretty extensive flushings of the bladder. Some techniques I was actually not familiar with. Anyway, she drives out to Jacksonville to do this. And she lives here at the beach, so it's about a 5-hour drive, 4 or 5 hours. And she drives out and back, and it's very stressful for her. And as a result of all the stress driving, she got so wound up her neck and her shoulders, she had to drive through like a 3-hour storm. And literally, she built up an immense amount of pain in her neck and her shoulders, even where she was getting numbness and tingling in her hands. And that's not super uncommon, believe it or not, especially from driving at night in a storm. Anyone's ever done that, your whole body afterwards is really wound up. Now, simultaneously, she's going to get these flushings for cancer in her body that makes her feel miserable anyway. So anyways, she gets a doctor's appointment about the neck and back pain. And her daughter, thank goodness, goes with her. And the doctor recommends her to go on this, I think, 5 or 6 day steroid pack. And the daughter is telling me all this. And she says, I couldn't believe the doctor was recommending it. And here's why. And this part of my, so I want to jump to part of the reason I'm sharing this. Listen, we always should have a patient advocate. We should always have a health advocate, always. So whether it be a spouse, a friend, a family member, a mother, a brother, maybe you're the advocate for your parents, and especially for our parents or people in our lives that are a little bit older. The individual who's going to the doctor or to the doctor's appointment often is uncomfortable, and it's hard for them to question. It's hard for them to interpret what's going on. I always, if there's someone in our waiting room and it's their brother, sister, mother, husband, I don't care, I always invite them back, because they'll hear things differently. They'll be able to go home and help that patient say, oh, I remember when the doctor said blankety blank, where by themselves, they could forget a lot of those things. So anyways, the daughter goes with her to this appointment. The doctor recommends a steroid pack. And immediately the daughter says, Doc, what are you doing? Don't steroids inhibit the immune system? Don't they shut down the immune system in order to work? And so this wasn't Dr. Bart telling this young lady to do this. She's listen, everyone's well educated now. We're smart when we have a phone, a walking, encyclopedia in our hands. And so sure enough, she's absolutely right. Steroids shut down the immune response, which could be inflammation, yet it shuts it down. And she's in the middle of fighting cancer, actively fighting cancer. And for her daughter's train of thought here was, that's not a smart move. And in this particular scenario, they ended up kind of having a not so good conversation with the doctor. The doctor was upset, saying, we got to get your mom out of pain. It's okay that we shut down the immune system. And the daughter was saying, no, this is not. And the poor mom was just dying there in pain, not dying, but in pain, kind of left on the outside of it. But so important to have that patient advocate. So my point here is that any time you think an appointment is important for you or your family member, there's going to be big conversations, go with them. Take time out of your day, go with them. And I know sometimes it's inconvenient. You got to sit in the doctor's office for a while. Yeah, we need each other in those appointments. And I always, advocate for someone to come with them to my appointment, especially like their first one, where the conversation might be longer. Heck, we record our consults as a result of that. We know there's no way they can take in all that information at one time, the instructions and all of this, the health tips, all of that. So anytime you can, always be a patient advocate, be a good friend, a good mother, daughter, son, whatever it may be. And the other part of that is I told the young girl, her name was Lori, said, good for you for having the courage to question your doctor. And that's why I'm sharing this one, because that goes right in line with, we have to stand up in some of those moments. And I'm not saying be confrontational, but we have to have the courage to ask the uncomfortable questions. I don't think we ask our doctors enough questions personally. And if the doctor is really offended by it, maybe say it a little bit different way, but it's not like, it's not your job to be best friends with them. You want definitely a relationship, but you also want your questions answered. And I love when people ask me questions, because, all right, someone's paying attention. Someone wants to get to the root of this. And sometimes, yes, they're saying, they might question what I'm doing or how I do it, or what are the results going to be. And it's okay. All of those are good questions to be asked, because it tells you're paying attention to your health and you're not just assuming what I say is perfect or what I'm going to do is going to work out, 100%. So patient advocate for all of us is really important. All right. Last one I want to share for clinical insight. And this is a little bit different. This is awesome little share here. So a 32-year-old female who came to me in a bit of distress, definitely obese and has been that way for quite some time. Massive hormone imbalances, a bit depressed. I don't know if I'd call it depression versus sadness, but consistent. Acne, a lot of the things that just kind of go along with an unhealthy lifestyle for a long period of time, but also with this, confused about what direction to take her health, and doesn't have a huge health basis, which a lot of us don't. So she really just stopped doing anything. And I think that's really common. So what I want to share about this is this. So the reason that she came to my office, not because me or you, Whitney, or anyone else, she came because her good friend who's been down that path before, who's shown the courage before, is now showing the kindness to say, I got your back, come with me. Literally brought her to my office, helped her schedule an appointment. So just in the first 30 days, and the results, listen, I share the results, but it's not always the same results. But in the first 30 days, she's lost over 10 pounds and her skin looks so amazing. So she shines. So that now she has some zep. Now she has excitement instead of sadness. And so her ability or willingness to take action will be much more likely now that she's getting some results. And we set up a consult, which we sit down and we set a nice strategy. We lay out a strategy for the long haul. And this is what we're going to do in the first couple months. This is what the next couple months look. So we've mapped it out all the way through past her cleanse in February before we, so 4 months out, we mapped out what that looks like. And she's so excited. Literally the tone, my wife is always playing with these little instruments and vibrational stuff. And it's so relative to me when she does that, because I'm always listening to a human's voice, the way that they speak to me, especially in the, in the clinical setting. And when I feel that voice, the tone change, I know that they're getting healthier. So this young lady, her eyes were clear, her tone was changed, just the way she articulated using her words was wonderful. So my message in this one is share your story. She would not have shown up in my office if her friend didn't say, hey, listen, I know how you feel. I felt that way before. Follow me. And so she used her experience. So every one of us out there has a bit of a success story in something. So do not think that your story doesn't matter, because someone else will relate to you much better than they'll relate to me or this podcast or all the other podcasts out there. So as much as you can, I guess we'll go back to where we started. Just be kind and be courageous enough to believe that your story matters, and your wins will help someone else win as well.
Bart, we are so fortunate to be surrounded by all of these awesome people. Wow.
Yeah. And I know
several leading by example and that courage.
Yeah, and I know several of the people. I'm just going to leave their names out tonight, and it's amazing to watch. And then it's just amazing to watch people stepping up for each other, over and over and over again. So it's yeah. So
don't you find it reignites you too?
100%. 100%. I literally say I think I might have one of the best jobs in the world. Well, if I could have been a Major League Baseball player, that would have been pretty cool too. But I'm probably past my prime on that. But right now, I'm very, very fortunate in the fact that I get to experience that regularly. And oftentimes I get a thank you for it, where it's not, and I say this to everyone, it is not me. I do not do the healing for you. If I was, that'd be like some superpower, right? What my power would be is helping you realize that you have the power within you and help you develop a strategy. That's our jobs as experts, as doctors, to help develop those strategies and then pull out of you what you are capable of doing, which is probably way more than you think. And that's where friends, colleague, community, your tribe is so effective and so powerful in the big picture.
It's so cool you say that about the tone, because we all know what it sounds like when you call someone that you know really well and you say like, "Hey, what's going on?" Or like, "Oh man, you sound great."
Right. And you know it, you feel it. There's no hiding it. And then Satan flips the other way too. You know, when someone's, you know, and you don't even need words for it. You know where they're at, and then you get to respond in such ways. So, so wonderful. All right. So a couple cool topics, and these are right in line with holidays. So a little prefacing up to what I want to again just kind of do a repeat. We got Thanksgiving coming, and the day after Thanksgiving is #1 day in our country for ER visits and heart attacks. And there's some very specific reasons. One, we're drinking too much, eating too much. Those are, and not sleeping enough. Day after Christmas, #2, New Year's Day, #3. This should really, every time I say this, it should be like, what? You kidding me? Like, that's crazy. Every single year? Yes, every single year. Average American gains, I think, is 12 or 13 pounds between October 31st and January 1st. So 2 months, let's just call it 12 pounds, 6 pounds a month, right? It's a pound every 3 days, something like that.
Wow.
Every 4 days, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And this is real indicative. And then today, indicative of what's coming, unless we choose to do something different. And then today, for those of you who see, I do some live Facebook posts. And today I did a post on caloric intake on Thanksgiving. So I was trying to do all the math the best I could. And then I Googled it as well. The average Thanksgiving meal for the average person without
Oh,
counting.
Bart, are you gonna say it? You're gonna say it, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And this is without going for seconds. The average Thanksgiving meal, each individual is consuming between 3,000 and 4,000 calories.
I feel like that's more than we're meant to have in a day.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's just this meal. So to make that, now, if you go back for seconds, you know, we're to give it kind of perspective. If you wanted to burn that off, we roughly, when you're doing cardio, you burn about 400 calories per hour. It'd be 10 hours of cardio to burn that off.
I wonder how many push-ups alongside that. Wow.
Lots. So it's no surprise that because it's, you know, that day is often about eating. And that did not include, that math right there did not include cheese and crackers, chips, or any pre-meal, nothing. It did include like a piece of pie at the end. So that was the best math I could do. So anyways, so with all that being said, the 3 things we're going to cover tonight, I'm going to cover fish oils. The reason I'm covering that is because of it plays such an incredible role in the inflammatory response in the body. So they're called, and we'll get into this in detail, but fish oils are called essential fatty acids. Essential is key. It means we need them from our diet. We don't make them in our body. We either got to eat them or supplement them. And the role that they play, one of the primary roles that they play, is they prevent things like cytokine storms. They prevent the promotion of inflammation. Technically, they're called resolvents, which means they help resolve inflammatory status. So that's one thing we're going to cover, the fish oils, but I want to get into that in detail. So we're not just blankly throwing a rock and taking any fish oils in. We're going to go into those details. We'll talk about some cool ones, even calamari oil tonight. And then I want to talk a little bit about blood pressure. We're not going to dive too deep into that, but it is important. This is perfect time of year. The blood pressures for many people are going to rise significantly over this next 60 days. And we're going to go into that so we can just be prepared for what might be coming. And then, sure enough, acid reflux. Acid reflux.
A good one to visit. Yes.
Yes. So, you know, that's more like one of the most common things, the sales of like all of the proton pump inhibitors and antacids go through the roof this time of year. All right, so let's dive in a little bit here. So let's just start off with the fish oils. So when I talk about fish oils, and we're going to put them in a category of what we call omega-3s. And they're omega-3s, and we get those in things. There's really 2 sources. They're going to be plant oils, and then there's going to be fish oils. But fish oils all fall into the category of really what we call marine oils, really algae. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And then there's omega-6s. And omega-6s, we often now hear we're getting too many omega-6s, and we are. Those are carbohydrates, and they come from plants as well, and especially when they're coming from the processed foods. So there's nothing wrong inherently about omega-6s in general, but where we're getting them from and the volume we're getting them from is where we get wrong. So let's focus for a moment here on omega-3s. So when I say fish oils, all fish oils are omega-3s. They all come from some type of, and here's how it works. So the water, whether it be in the ocean or in a pond or lake, it's what we call marine oils. They grow in algae. The fish eat the algae, and that's where they get the oil from. Then it gets into their tissue, and then we eat the fish. So that's where fish oils come from, because they're eating it for us. So that's technically where it comes from. Now, there are what we call omega-3s, and omega-3 covers the whole blanket of them. But then inside the omega-3s, this is where I want to get very specific. There are the plant-based ones, which we call ALAs, ALA, and those are good for some things. And then there's something called DHA and EPA. And this is what I want to focus on tonight. These two right here, DHA and EPA, are hands down the significantly best for inflammation, for heart health, for eye health, for brain health, and for joints. So you want to try to get rid of pain and inflammation in your joints. The higher dosing of, well, and I'll go into the exact dosing in just a moment, but DHA, EPA. Now, all of them are considered omega-3s. So there are other oils that canola oil and those guys, but we don't want that one. That's really bad. Evening primrose oil, all of these ALAs that come from veggies, although they are good for us and they are in the category of omega-3s, they do not have the same effect. So when someone says, well, I don't like fish, and they're going to eat their plant veggies or plant oils only, they will not get the same results. And that's an important one. I see that a lot clinically, where people, for one reason or another say, I don't want to eat fish. So I'm going to go through a couple different kinds and the differences of these different kinds. So, all right. So if you've listened to my shows at all, you've listened to our Health Made Simple podcast here, no doubt you've heard me talk about cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is my blanket one. I think it would just be good for everyone to take. Now, with that being said, it's actually not super high in DHA or EPA. It certainly has it. For every 3 capsules, has about 500 milligrams combined. And really where we want to be is combine those. When you look on the back of your fish oil bottle, you want to look at the DHA and the EPA, and you want to get that number up to no less than 1,000, but somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500. In some scenarios, I get that all the way up to 2,000.
Is that per serving, Bart?
Per serving.
Got it.
And you can spread that out. So you could spread it out. So let's just say you want to do, 500 in the morning and then 500 in the afternoon. And I'm going to show, I actually have some bottles with me here to show some different examples of different ones. So I have cod liver here, and I'm going to show that. So that would take 3 capsules to get about 500 or 600, I believe, milligrams. So if you wanted to get one, I'm recommended about 1,000 milligrams, you're going to need about 5 capsules, about 5 or 6 capsules. There we go. One of the reasons I still use cod liver oil is probably my primary go-to on fish oils for a couple reasons. Cod liver oil is the only one that has naturally occurring vitamin A and vitamin D. And those are so important for so many reasons. Very difficult to get both of those, vitamin A and vitamin D, naturally occurring in nature. And ideally, you want them to come together. They're very synergistic. Those are part of the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. They make up the lipid layer around our cells. So that is what's protecting your house. Yeah, that's what makes strong cells. So as much we can get that from our natural source, wonderful. So when I give cod liver oil to someone, I know a couple things. I'm helping make strong human beings, which is cool, because we're making stronger cells with that vitamin A and vitamin D. We're also going to help joint health. We're going to help eye health. We're going to help brain health. We're going to help heart health, because we have the DHA and EPA. So if the difference would be here, if I had someone that had really, really bad joint pain, like chronically bad joint pain, bad types of arthritis, and cholesterol issues, it could be any one of those. That's where I want to get a higher dose of the DHA, EPA, especially if there's any history of either brain trauma and or brain health history challenges, dementias, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. And so there's a couple others, probably the single best one I know out there. And it's interesting because I don't get to use it a lot. And we're going to ask the question why in just a moment. My single best out there for just giving the best bang for the buck. And folks, listen to this one. You get 1,200 milligrams in 1 teaspoon of calamari oil.
Calamari, like the appetizer.
Yes, the
Clean
appetizer.
and delicious.
And I know not everyone's watching tonight, but someone just listen. I'm going to show you. There's a bottle of it right here. Right? Calamari oil. And one of the reasons a lot of people say, well, Doc, why don't you tell everyone to take calamari oil? Because a lot of times when I say calamari oil, they make a face at me. Like, oh, and compliance is king. So, and listen, it's the way they've made this process is third-party tested, which is beautiful. It's good, clean oil, does not taste bad. They use a little lemon as a natural preserve. So all fish oils, and this is real important for us, everyone to understand, that fish oils oxidize easy. I mean, they bind to oxygen really easily. And when they do that, it breaks them down. And once they're broken down, they will stink, they will taste bad, they're not as effective for what we're trying to achieve. And they taste bad, right? So that's the ones that we're going to burp up. So therefore, all of your fish oils should have to go through the bite test, which means you bite them. So anyone, that's been to the clinic, that they most likely everyone that I've talked about cod liver oil, I just tell you, we don't swallow them. They're big capsules, just bite them and toss the capsules out. So you always know if it's quality. So if someone says, well, Doc, I've had these, fish oils in my cabinet for, the last 6 months, and are they still good? I bite them, find out. They taste bad, they're bad, get rid of them. So we just covered cod liver oil and calamari oil. So the calamari had more than 2 times the amount of DHA and EPA. Yet it had really nothing in terms of vitamin A and D. So again, one interesting way we can do this, and there's another product that I use probably as frequently as any, and I'm going to show it just so people understand what it is. It's called Prima EPA DHA. So those are the things we're looking for, the EPA and DHA. And these have about, for every 2 capsules, it's about a total of 900. So when you're looking at the back of your bottles, it's not just the total omega-3, or it's not just the amount of fish oil. You have to look for DHA and the EPA amounts. That's where we're going to have the most effect. And the beauty so there's some great studies on things like lowering triglycerides, lowering cholesterols. And that's done with, the blanket cover of omega-3s. And there's 3 types, ALA, DHA, and EPA. But really specifically, it's the DHA, EPA that most of the studies are done. So this is, oddly enough, something that's helping us lower cholesterols in a very safe and gentle way. So brain health, if you have joint pain, doesn't matter what and how from, this is fantastic for. And again, this is what your body uses to facilitate the inflammatory process. So it can help slow it down and also help facilitate it by resolving the problem at hand and get rid of it. Eye health. Most eye doctors right now are also offering and suggesting fish oils for better eyesight. So that's a great way. Brain health is hands down. 50% of your brain is made up of DHA. So there's so many really significant uses for this. And that's why fish oils, when people say, if there's one good supplement that I think everyone would benefit from, and that key is benefit, there's so many health benefits from it. This is probably up there. It's probably in the top 2, quite frankly. And then cover the bite test. They do get rancid relatively easy. They're food wise, so you can get them in your food. You can eat your fish oils, which is another fantastic way. We have to be a little careful nowadays, especially. So one of the best everyone knows is salmon. And the nice thing, if you get 3 or 4 ounces of salmon, that's equivalent to a day's, that's about 1 gram or 1,000 milligrams. So that's good.
That's awesome.
We want these every day. So you're probably not eating fish oil every day. And then the others, like some of my favorites, sardines. Anchovies are not my favorite, but they are one of the best for DHA and EPA. In fact, a lot of the products out there that have DHA and EPA will have anchovy and sardines in them. That's where the primary source of them. Mackerel is very good. Trout is very good. Herring is very good. Tuna can be good as well. We have a little bit of issue. We got to watch with tuna, just the mercury levels. So as long as your tuna is being checked by multiple companies, and it's a high quality, no mercury is being found, fantastic. So now let's talk about, can you test this? This is my favorite part about the fish oils. You absolutely can test this. It's very easy to test this, and I recommend everyone to do it. The test is real simple. It's a finger prick. And literally, I think they call it a spot test. You just prick your finger, put on a piece of paper, mail it in, and about 7 to 10 days later, you're going to get a result.
It's pretty cool to be able to test that at home, right? Easy breezy.
And that's the thing. It is at home, and I think the cost of these, it's usually under $100. And here's how important it is, that if you get the right scoring, and maybe you could put a link to the test, or people literally, if we wanted, we could mail it out to them. Your first score you're going to get is a percentage of how much of these omega-3s are in your blood, like in the red blood cells. And you want that to be at least 8%, somewhere between 8 and 12%. The majority of people that I test, it's not there. It's not even close. What's fascinating, if you are 8% or above, it reduces your risk for all causes of mortality. That's how cool this is. So people are like, I want to live longer. What do I need to do? How do I go about this? One of the ways you do is get your omega-3 score up above 8%. And what you'll discover is that your risk for all causes of mortality, meaning dying from anything, that could be dying from cancer, but it could also be by not getting run over by a car. All of your risks for everything improve greatly when your score is above 8, which is fascinating. And if you test it, so here's how you do it. If you do test it, and your score isn't great, or you're trying to improve it, you can, on your test, if you get there's different types of tests you can get, Whitney. I just tell people, get the one that is kind of the full encompassing one, and it'll break it down, and it'll show you how much DHA, EPA, omega-3, ALAs, it'll break all that down for you. Then you can extract, if you really want to be a sharpshooter, and then go back and say, well, I need more of blank. I need more DHA, EPA. And then you can find the product that fits exactly what you need.
It's beautiful to have all the options. And as a person who has taste tested, I think all of these at this point, they actually are pretty good. So anyone who's listening who is thinking of the cod liver from like decades ago, I'm here to tell you this stuff is pretty good. And Bart, what is the magic in fish oils that makes my headaches go away like that?
Well, the whole idea there is that our brain is made up of those essential fatty acids. So when you are dehydrated, or your brain doesn't have enough good fats, your brain hurts. I'm simplifying it. So that is often what we use in our house. If you have a headache or something, we'll take the fish oil, those essential fatty acids eventually get to the, get to the brain, and almost immediately, almost as if you're taking like an aspirin or a Tylenol, you'll have the effect of down-regulating that inflammation. So it's the anti-inflammatory effect that's creating that for us.
It's so beautiful. And thinking going into the holidays, of these days where it's the most heart attacks and strokes a year, like to lower all cause mortality, it's a great thing to use every day.
Yeah, and what happens with poor diets and alcohol and everything comes joint pain. So all the arthritis show up, and pain meds are used a lot this time of year. So all the above, and so much of it is caused literally by what we're putting into our bodies, and our bodies are responding to them. So this is something good that you can put into your body that will help you respond to all of those other things that are going on.
And I love that they help with eye health. We do have a question tonight coming in from Kim. Would cod liver help with night blindness, since it does have the vitamin A and D?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the answer is yes. So, night blindness, I assume what you're talking about is it's harder and harder for you to see at night. And yes, anything you can do to improve eye function and essential fatty acids, and you could even do a little research on your own, but essential fatty acids and their effect on eyesight is quite remarkable. So I would say right away, go ahead, and you want to probably, if you're going to use cod liver oil and you already know you have some declining eyesight challenges, I'll get that dose somewhere between 4 and 6 per day, and roll with it. So here's the other thing too. If you're going to test and you want to retest, give yourself between 90 and 120 days. So you want those tests you want to give your body enough time to get it up into the cells and, regulate things. So you can have an impact on what your score is going to be. So most of those tests are very much like when we test for things like hemoglobin A1C. It's really a measure over the past 90 days.
Beautiful. And did you want to share dosing for those fish oils?
Yeah. So for the you mean the different ones? Yeah. So if you were
Yeah.
in the calamari, literally a teaspoon a day, donezo. That's so when people are looking for easy things to do, or they're trying to decrease their pill count and they don't mind a little bit of liquid, just one teaspoon, not tablespoon, teaspoon a day, down in the hatch it goes. The All Prima, so just 2 of them in there, itsy bitsy, 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the night. Now, I will tell you that oftentimes I'll use that one clinically and therapeutically to help things with inflammation. I'll often double that dosage, especially if there's like chronic inflammation or there's, joint pain or fibromyalgia, stuff, chronic pains that people are dealing with that I know that inflammation based, I'll help that. And again, just, I guess I always have to say my disclaimer, when I share all these things, I'm never diagnosing, I'm never giving medical advice, never giving medical treatment. So always check with your provider and whatnot as you go through these, as I talk about these things. So, all right, that being said, all right.
Fair enough.
Any other questions about fish oils or anything else you want to, kind of talk about there, Whit?
I suppose the general dosing for cod liver oil would be two times a day. Yeah.
2 times a day. Yes. And that'll give us probably roughly about 600 of the EPA DHA, and then 600 milligrams, that is. And then we also get a very good dosing of vitamin A and vitamin D.
Perfect. I put a couple links in the chat, guys, in the case you wanted to check any of those out with the dosing. That is a great cover on fish oils. Also, if you haven't had sardines in 20 years, I'm here to tell you they're delicious today. Give them another try.
Fantastic. That's right.
All right. So should we step into another question that you're getting a lot leading into the holidays, Bart?
Yeah. So the next one we'll cover is blood pressure and everything that goes about it. And I really want to cover this kind of in a 10,000 foot view, a little bit more broad. And what I mean by that is this: we got to get to the root causes of why do we have blood pressure. And I promise you folks, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's not because you inherited. Even though it may be a genetic code that you have some different heart issues, but high blood pressure by itself, typically, not even typically, 99% of the time is lifestyle driven. So it's really what we call our epigenetics, not our genetics, which is good news. That means we can do something about it. And there's 3 primary things that I want to keep in mind. So as you go through the holidays, I think it's important to just pay attention to these 3 things. And the 3 driving forces behind high blood pressure is going to be sleep, stress, and sugar. Unfortunately, when people are tested to get high blood pressure, the 2 biggest, most common tidbits or pieces of information or advice that they're given is stay away from salt and red meat. And we need to stop blaming salt, and we need to stop blaming red meat because it's not their fault. In fact, sodium is one of the critical electrolytes that we need for heart health. Now, granted, it shouldn't be in that table salt. Like, I'm not talking about all the added salts. We're really talking about like things like sea salt. So the takeaway in this conversation is this: that we're going to see an incredible amount of high blood pressures through the holidays. And we're going to see those often the day after the abuse has been done. That's when we get the poor sleep, we get all the indigestion, we have all of these chemicals floating around the body from all the different foods and things we putting into our body. The poor sleep, the stress adds up, the alcohol is there, and it is that following day that we see the blood pressure rise, and it's due to the stress internally and in the body. And it's also caused by a deficiency. And what is a deficiency? A deficiency of nutrients. So, and that happens when we have a lot of simple carbohydrates in the diet. And the next topic we're going to go into, we're going to talk about acid reflux in a moment. This will all be pulled together. So I want you to just pay attention to the fact that the heart is just simply, it's a muscle. And if we have high blood pressure, most likely it is due to one of 3 causes, and it's poor sleep, too much stress, and too much sugar. If you take care of those, it's almost inevitable that you will be able to lower your blood pressure. Now, some of the other healthy things I think we should all do, and we've talked about it here in the show, breathing techniques. You could certainly listen to one of our past shows. I think we went into that in depth about doing abdominal breathing, slow exhales, just really slow your breathing down. I also think that if you have high blood pressure, testing yourself at home, because there is such thing as a white coat syndrome. And that means that we literally go to the doctor's office and our blood pressure goes up. So any of these practices, I think, would be super helpful. There are a couple fundamentals, something called vitamin B2. Formerly, we talked about it as cataplex or vitamin G. And that is the part of the B family that is a vasodilator. So it's a natural, it's a whole food source that opens up those blood vessels and takes pressure off, which means it lowers blood pressure. It is what we call B2. It is a natural source of the B vitamins that vasodilates. And it's one of these single best things we can do, especially when there's stress-induced high blood pressures.
That is some really clear and crisp guidance, because I think a lot of people say, I have high blood pressure. Like, what do I do from here? And there's some wild things that can come in, right?
Yeah. And
We really have the power to breathe through it and make some changes.
and one of the things I know for certain, this is going to sound funny when I say it, but I know that no one's ever had high blood pressure as a result of a lack of medications. Like, we're not lacking medications, and that's why it goes up. So it makes sense that when we are navigating our health, that we also give it some time and some effort to go back and say, well, what's at the root cause of this? Because the truth is, we don't want high blood pressure. We don't want the most important organ in the body overworking. Right. So if we can, give it some, a sense of ease and harmony, give it a little love, let it kind of slow down a little bit. Fantastic. And it's because I've seen it so frequently, so easily affected in a positive nature. It's, if we talked about this once a month, I think it'd be worthy, because that's the one I would love everyone to hear, that if you have high blood pressure, there's a 99% chance that you can do something about it on your own.
That's so powerful. Would you also say, alongside salt, there's other minerals that could be helpful as well?
Yeah, so collectively, the group of electrolytes are probably one of the single most important things that become deficient. In those, the primary ones are potassium, which we get from vegetables. Magnesium is probably the single standalone that is the most deficient. So if someone came to me with high blood pressure today, a suggestion I might make would be using some B2, which is the vasodilator, but also magnesium. It's a yin mineral, and it is one of the most commonly deficient electrolytes we have. So there's sodium, or just mentioned that just a moment ago, potassium, chloride, magnesium, and there's one of the others I'm missing here. But those are our primary electrolytes. There's 5 of them really, and
Calcium.
Calcium, that's right, yes.
Yeah.
Which is really the deficient one, because it's in everything. But the magnesium, potassium, absolutely. If you're not eating vegetables, you're eating junk all the time, yeah, you probably have magnesium, potassium deficiency. In that one, I can't remember the last time I gave that as a supplement to someone. It's almost always, it's go home and eat some vegetables, because if you eat any vegetables, you're going to get potassium, which is wonderful. Magnesium, on the other hand, when we sweat, drink alcohol, eat sugar, poor sleep, all depletes magnesium pretty quickly. So that's one that is always beneficial to supplement.
Awesome. And would you like to share how we could use the Cataplex B2?
Yeah, so you can do a couple of things. One of the simplest and best ways is take it before you go to bed, and you can do pretty high dosing. When I say that, because it's just it is a whole food source of B vitamins, and it's a vasodilator. So the dosing often that I'll put people on being as low as 4, but as high as 8, and just paying attention. Then you could take some, you can chew them up if you want them to act faster, because they get right into the blood. You digest them faster versus just swallowing the pills. And then if you have your home blood pressure cuff, what's nice is that you can start to do your breathing, chew up your B vitamins, blood pressure, do it again, and just kind of monitor. And most of the time, it's very nice to watch. Wow, I just took an action that lowered my blood pressure almost instantaneously.
That is gorgeous. So you're saying after this 4,000 calorie plate on Thursday,
Yeah. We're going to literally, after that meal, people are going to see the blood pressure skyrocket, because then it's going to be with, alcohol and everything like that. And again, by no way am I telling you to bypass and jump off all your medications, and please. And I think everyone understands that. I also would say, look for the root cause. If you need to be on medications for a little bit, as you figure out the root causes to your, to your high blood pressure, and you develop the habits, beautiful. Your heart is something you want to take care of, and just driving it down with the med isn't taking care of it. It's just masking a symptom, but your blood pressure wants to be high for a reason. And most of the time there's a deficiency in nutrients, and it's trying to circulate those nutrients that aren't there.
Awesome. Well, let's make sure that we also get to this last topic, Bart. Acid reflux, another thing that many of us will be thinking about this week. What can we do?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw a bunch in that. We'll kind of do a little speed round here. So think of acid reflux, GERD, indigestion, heartburn, all of those, put them in the same category. Typically what happens in those scenarios, not typically, but it's been very common practice that we use things like Tums and Rolaids and Prilosec and proton pump inhibitors, which Prilosec is, and Zyrtec, all of these other things that are inhibiting. And this is what they inhibit. They inhibit the production of acid. That's problematic. And I'm going to explain to you why. And this is going to happen. So when we eat protein of any source, like turkey, for example, we need to have hydrochloric acid in our stomach in order to break that turkey down. So that's a very specific digestive enzyme that would be your best friend all the way through the holidays. Anytime you eat an animal protein, take a little bit of hydrochloric acid. The one we use is something called Zypan. Your entire Thanksgiving and holiday experiences will be different because it'll stop so much of the indigestion that happens. The reason, even for my healthy folks out there, are going to experience the bloating, the painful, like overeating feeling, all of that is for a couple simple reasons. So we have carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and we have different enzymes that break those down. For meats, and think of all your animal proteins, hydrochloric acid, that's what you need to break that one down. For fats, you need something called lipase, and lipase is delivered by the pancreas. It goes to the small intestine, it goes to the stomach, and that lipase helps us break down fats. You'll also get some support from your liver and the gallbladder by producing some bile, but that's secondary. But your digestive enzyme there is something called lipase. And then last but not least, we have, what if you have a simple carbohydrate like mashed potatoes, like cranberries, like stuffing, right? All these fun stuff, like a piece of cake, like a piece of pie, apple pie, whatever it's going to be. Those are all in the category of what we call simple carbohydrates. They need zero digestive enzymes. So what that means is that our bodies are trying to be efficient. So they think that food is a source of energy. So if we eat mashed potatoes with a little bit of fat, maybe say, let's just call it butter, and we mix in after the next bite a big thing of turkey, what your body will go, well, I'm not going to break down the turkey. That's hard. I need to produce hydrochloric acid. I got to get the whole motor running. That's kind of difficult. I'm not going to break down the butter. That's a fat. That takes enzymes as well. I'm just going to break down that white stuff over there. I can convert that to sugar, easy breezy. I'm going to leave the other stuff exactly where it is. And then we just break down the simple carbohydrate, leaving the other food undigested. And as long as we keep bringing in these simple carbohydrates and we are mixing these foods, we're taking in fats and proteins and carbohydrates, the body's just going to break down the simplest one. And that's why we get all this indigestion. That's why we wake up in the middle of the night. So back to the whole thing here of the high blood pressure, sleep will be disrupted when we overeat, when we eat like this. Now we mix in some alcohol, forget about it. You're not going to sleep right. So now we're getting tired. You get up in the morning, the body has to run, it's exhausted. So it needs more nutrients. So it increases the blood pressure to try to circulate more nutrients, which it doesn't have. So now we start this vicious cycle of keeping your body in this fight or flight state, which is which is a direct correlation to higher blood pressure. So this acid reflux, really what happens, it's not because we have too much acid, but because we have too weak of acid right at the top of our stomach. You can't really see where I put my fingers here, right at the bottom where your sternum comes together. Right behind there is something called your esophageal sphincter. It's a valve. And that valve closes, it uses a nutrient to close that, and that nutrient is hydrochloric acid. So when we don't have acid, it opens. When acid is around, it closes it. So it's almost the polar opposite of what we're thinking. Now, the bummer is when we start taking antacids and Prilosec and whatnot, your body doesn't produce it. So what do? We become masters at just eating, consuming, and digesting simple carbohydrates. That's when I hear people, Whitney, tell me, well, I don't really like red meat. Eggs bother my stomach. And it's because often the mixing of those animal proteins with simple carbohydrates. So remember, I often am not talking about food pairing that much, because when we go to God's garden, there are very few simple carbohydrates that we're using. We're using complex carbohydrates, broccoli, Brussels sprout, cauliflower, kales, and they don't dissolve just like that. They still need digestive enzymes. So it's a total different gig. But the moment we start to put the burger with the French fry, oh boy, troublesome. So all of those, we're going to see a lot of that through the holidays, and that can create, and there's a lot of correlation between what feels like a heart attack and indigestion. And that's what they call the heartburn. A lot of people end up in the hospital and they'll find out this is just indigestion. Then they go on some type of proton pump inhibitor, and it just starts a snowball effect of overall ill health, because once you go on, you can't break down your fats and your proteins, and you only become really a carbohydrate metabolizer. Once that happens, you're going to start to lose out slowly but surely, and all those vitamins and minerals, those amino acids. Speaking of amino acids, because we've talked about different proteins before, like protein powders, there's what's called essential amino acids that make up a protein. Well, once the protein comes into your body, what the hydrochloric acid is really doing, it's breaking those proteins down into amino acids. So then you can use it to do things like make dopamine, serotonin, and all the other like neurotransmitters that make us feel good and kind of help all our other hormones. So long story short, through the course of the holidays, use your digestive enzymes. That's going to be your best friend. And what's all of this? So, we have the cleanse that we do every year, and we got it coming up in January. We're going to kick it off January 2nd. People always say, well, what's it going to do? How's it really working? And what the real magic behind the cleanse, it's rehab for your digestive system. And the root of that, it really helps things like your pancreas and your stomach be able to make things like hydrochloric acid on its own, like produce and make lipase on its own, your gallbladder to help, store and then release bile when it needs to. Those are all the things that take a beat down. And as a result of it, that's how our body starts to change over time, because the system is so beat up. And in the cleanse, we rehab the digestive system and then improve some habits along the way, eat some better clean foods. But it's not just about the clean foods at that point. We got to rehab it from the beatdown that we put on.
That was a pretty awesome take on that full cycle of what happens when we start eating some things that get a little bit funky. And it really merits, I know that we absolutely are all worth a little pause just to rehabilitate and renew.
Yeah. So, and then through it all, so we want to enjoy the holidays, but why not enjoy them feeling great? And so that's, I'm a broken record right now in the clinic, and I'll be that way all the way through the holiday of just saying, absolutely have fun, experience it all. And maybe it doesn't mean punishing yourself with all the different foods or the alcohol and whatnot. So, and I think the more and more, I think I feel like that message is being received better and better, because a lot of times I hear people say, no, I'm done with that. I don't do that on Thanksgiving anymore. And I will tell you, I'm as guilty as anyone. At least in the past, the last couple of I've done better, but I really have to watch myself. Not that it's an excuse, but as I've stated many times, I'm a stress eater. My football team plays on Thanksgiving Day. So good news is there'll only be good food around. So if it happens, it's happening because of pure overconsumption, but it's a possibility.
I wonder if you had become an MLB player, like a professional baseball player, how that stress would influence what you were eating. Maybe it worked out. You became a chiropractor.
Yeah, maybe it did, but that would have been fun. Yeah,
But it would have been fun.
fun. Yes.
Well, I can't believe it, Bart. We find us here at the end of our show. And I want to ask you our last question. We've covered a lot of great stuff tonight, so I'm excited to hear your answer. What is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
I think back to our initial conversation is to be courageous, to find some courage that you don't normally use with your spouse, with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, with the strangers. Just be more courageous in life and watch how contagious that can be.
That's beautiful. An extra special thank you to all of you for joining us here at the Health Made Simple show tonight and always.
Of course. And thank you everyone for, continuing to show up each and every week and keep doing the thing, keep sharing out, keep spreading love. If you have the opportunity, you can go to your favorite place where you listen to your podcast and give us a review. That would be awesome. That helps. And in the meantime, keep doing the thing, keep sharing out, keep spreading love. And of course, we can take deliberate action for your mind, your body over wellness. Y'all be awesome.